Hello everyone, I hope you have all had a really great week and welcome back to my channel. If you're new to my channel, then my name is Mrs. Smith. I'm a Christian and I walk about in all sorts of nice locations talking about various aspects of life from a Christian point of view. So today I was walking around Scotney Castle, which is a National Trust property. Scotney Castle is a 14th century moated castle and an English country house with formal gardens in the southeast of Lamberhurst in the valley of the River Buell in Kent in the UK. There are over 700 acres of woodland to explore here. There's a tea room, picnic areas, toilets, there are big car parks with disabled parking, and there's also a shop. If you're not a member of the National Trust, then adults are £15 to get in and young people are £7.50. Now, there was some sun glare on my video today and I really do apologise for that. There's only a little bit and it doesn't last very long. But I really need to look into what to do for sun glare on the lens. So if you have any tips for me, then I would really love to read them in those comments. I did manage to film some of the inside of the house today though, so if you'd like to see inside the house, then do stick around for that. Scotney really is a beautiful place to walk around, so it is well worth a visit. Now, I've titled this video, Is It Okay to Be Angry with God? And I'm talking about this today because I know that some of my Christian friends struggle with this. They feel guilty if they become angry with or at God over something that's going on in their lives. So I just wanted to address this question as I feel like it's an important one that most, if not all, Christians go through at one time or another. But this isn't a talk just for Christians, because to be honest, I've also had a few of my non-Christian friends saying things to me like, I could never be a Christian, I'd get too angry with God. So I really feel like this is a subject that needs to be talked about. Now, right from the off, I'm going to tell you that whether you are a Christian or not, I think that it is absolutely fine for us to be angry with and at God. And I'm going to explain to you why I believe this. So first of all, God created us as humans, right? And therefore we have human emotions. And anger is a natural human emotion. And it's understandable to feel angry or upset when we're faced with things in our lives like suffering or loss or unfairness or injustice. In fact, in the Christian Bible, there are many, many examples of people like Job and the psalmists expressing their anger and frustration at God, demonstrating that it's not unusual to sometimes have feelings of anger towards God. Secondly, I feel like we should always try to be honest with how we are feeling, and not just with others and not just with ourselves, but also with God. You know, we should always aim to have honest relationships, no matter who they're with, and being honest with God about our anger, I believe, can really deepen our relationship or our connection with God. So rather than trying to hide or suppress our true feelings, I feel like it's better to voice them out. I've found this myself in the past, actually, in times when I have gone to God and maybe shouted or ranted or even cried about something that is going on in my life. Instead of God being cross with me, though, for behaving that way towards him, I have genuinely felt a closeness to him that has been unexpected. You know, it's almost like God has been putting his arms around me in the midst of it all and saying, I know you're hurting, I'm hurting for you and with you, but I've got you. You know, much like a parent would with their child. And I've found that incredibly comforting. Thirdly, feeling anger can sometimes be a catalyst for seeking answers and understanding from God. You know, if we're letting out how we truly feel about a situation to him, sometimes, and again, I've experienced this myself, God can give us some understanding as to why the thing we're angry about is happening in our lives. An insight, if you like. And suddenly we can start to feel a bit better about the whole situation. So personally, I absolutely feel that it's okay to sometimes be angry with and at God. However, I do feel that there are a few important things to consider about the anger that we express to God. For example, I feel it's okay to be angry at God, but not okay to allow our anger to develop into something more like resentment or even hatred towards God. Because while anger can be a temporary emotion, which when aired can help us to get things off our chest and feel better, resentment or hatred are far more deeply rooted and negative feelings, which can potentially have bad connotations and don't do us or those we are aiming our hatred towards any good at all. And feelings of resentment and hatred can potentially cause us to act on the anger that we're feeling as well. And while it might be acceptable to feel angry because it's a natural human emotion, if we bottle that anger up and don't let it out, it can sometimes lead to some really, negative physical behaviour as well. And that is never okay. And that's certainly not how God would want us to behave. So I feel like God would rather have us go to him and vent our anger at him so that he can help us and comfort us and maybe give us a deeper understanding about the situation we're going through so that we can start to feel better about it rather than just us bottle everything up and have it festering away, boiling underneath until it bubbles over and bursts out in a negative, potentially physical way. You know, the Christian Bible in many places tells us that inappropriate behaviour that is fueled by anger is sinful. For example, in the book of Colossians in chapter 3 and verse 8, it says, I've got it here, here are the kinds of things you must get rid of. You must put away anger, rage, hate, and lies. And inappropriate behaviour fueled by anger can really harm us as well as those around us. You know, it becomes kind of self-defeating. It can destroy our joy and our peace if we hang on to it. And more than that, you know, holding on to our anger can allow bitterness and resentment to dwell deep in our hearts. So venting our anger with or at God can actually be really beneficial to us as well. You know, if we can release those feelings to him and he helps us to deal with them. Thinking about it, in the Bible in Ephesians, in chapter 4, I think it is, it says, be angry but do not sin. Do not let the sun go down on your anger. So in other words, deal with it, right? Get rid of it. And the best way that I personally have found to get rid of unwanted feelings is to give them all to God. You know, I feel like it's also important to remember what God's attributes are as well. The characteristics that Christians use to describe God's nature and being. And these are things like love, justice, righteousness, goodness, kindness, mercy, loyalty, faithfulness, being steadfast or unchanging. You know, even when facing difficult situations, much like the characteristics that Jesus showed us before he was taken to be crucified. That's the role model I feel like as a Christian I'm aiming for. And I guess it's important to trust in that goodness of God when things around us aren't going how we want them to or how we feel we need them to. God's plans, you know, or the reasons why he sometimes doesn't always step in, aren't always immediately clear to us. And that's hard to accept sometimes. But from my experience, I know that in waiting and having a bit of patience, I can occasionally start to see why things have gone the way they have in situations. And sometimes I even see that if they hadn't gone that way, they could have actually become much worse in another way. So I guess trusting in God's plans too is quite important. So although I personally feel like it's not wrong to be angry with or at God, especially if we're dealing with pain or suffering, expressing it honestly and respectfully so that it doesn't turn into something more than just anger is the way that I would try to go. So not allowing those feelings of anger to turn into something more. I want to share my husband's favourite Bible verse with you now. It's in the book of Jeremiah in chapter 29 and it's verse 11. And it says, "I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future." You know, I know this world doesn't always feel like God's will is going according to his plans. And I guess part of that is down to people having free will to choose right or wrong. But personally, I try to lean on God's understanding of why things are happening rather than my own, because I can't always see the bigger picture. So, if you're feeling angry at or with God for some reason, don't be afraid to tell him how you're feeling. He has broad shoulders, right? And he will understand. He will help. He might even give you insights into why things are going the way that they are. But one thing I know for certain, when I do vent my anger to God, I feel so much better afterwards. I experience things like less tension, maybe a better understanding, a release of pent-up energy and emotions, and it stops any potential build-up of unhealthy anger. But most of all, I become much closer to God, and I literally feel him helping me and healing me as well. And does God understand when we're angry, frustrated, or disappointed with and at him? Yeah, of course he does. He knows our hearts, and he knows how difficult and painful life in this world can be. As Christians, we're called to address anger quickly and resolve conflicts quickly too, rather than letting them linger and potentially cause further harm. But to be honest, I feel like whether you're a Christian or not, that's pretty good advice for everyone. Thank you so much for joining me again today on another Walking and Talking video, and please do hit that thumbs up button for me below if you've enjoyed my video. But if you haven't enjoyed my video, then please let me know why in the comments. I would really genuinely love to hear your views on this subject. And if you have any other subjects you would like me to walk and talk about, or any locations you feel might be good to walk around in the southeast of the UK, then please let me know those in the comments too. But until next time, please take care and God bless you all. Bye.